Welcome back to this episode of the Law of Relevancy podcast. I'm your host, Cordes Owen, and today we're joined by James McKay. And James has started a RevOps organization named Ven.studio, and they specialize in helping companies operationalize the act of getting your next customer. James, thanks for joining us.
Cordes, really appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to talk with you because is anybody who's ever gone through the process of understanding what the value of their business is, one of the main things that comes up is, well, how do you get your next customer, right? And It seems like in the past, people have done it many different ways. There's very popular CRMs. It seems like every CRM has the exact same parts to it, but how do you actually use the CRM and actually create an organization of people around the process of selling?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and what you've even done in the phrasing of the question is point out, I think, unintentionally one of the big problems, which is the CRM really should be a reflection of a process or a set of processes that already works. And I think one of the biggest mistakes the companies make is that they just think the CRM is going to do that for them. And so I think when you have a really good RevOps org, you fundamentally understand who your customer is and where they're coming from and what needs to be done to get them there. And then you build a CRM and you build tools and you build a strategy around that. But this has to happen in the real world. Like the customer has to go from having never heard of you to now having heard of you to now being interested in what you do to engaging with you and to ultimately becoming a customer. And the CRM really doesn't do any of that for you.
Yeah, ultimately a CRM is just a database, and there's some CRMs out there that have just become popular because they're easy to use. I mean, that's half the challenge, is get people to actually use the thing. But use it the same way or the right way so that you can actually report on things.
Yeah, for sure. So there's two incumbents in the space. There's HubSpot, which is the easy to use one, and then there's Salesforce, which is the impossibly hard to use one, but that can do anything. And then there's a whole bunch of other players, legacy ones that either are not popular and never going to get popular, or are heavily verticalized, like based on industry, or there are some kind of like oncoming sort of AI-based ones like Altio, which are making some waves. But yeah, that's really the essence of the CRM landscape. Are you going to go with HubSpot, and are you going to be able to set it up easily? And then are you going to get yourself into trouble because it's too easy? Or are you going to go with Salesforce and admit defeat right away and accept that you are going to get involved with a lot of fixed costs and overhead, but ultimately believe that you can get to where you need to go from a business point of view?
Yeah, well, that's a really important question. So how to help us navigate that question? Like if I were coming to you today and I said, hey, I'm building a SaaS company and my goal is to get to, let's say, 200 customers in the first year. It's B2B, maybe it's some kind of a telephony product or something. Which platform would I pick and why?
The answer is HubSpot. And the reason why you pick it is because you can set it up yourself or without a lot of overhead. And HubSpot does core things really well. Like I'm a huge HubSpot fan, to be honest, and I work with both. Like my business, almost everything I do is either in HubSpot or Salesforce. There's very little I do that is none of those. But HubSpot gets you going really fast, and it has native functionality in kind of the end-to-end of any sort of revenue cycle. Like it started as mostly a marketing tool, and most of the companies who I talk to who actually transition to Salesforce, which usually happens in the life cycle of a company, keep it because of the marketing capabilities and just have it syncing with Salesforce. The only way I would ever recommend Salesforce to a company right away is if they have a lot of built-in complexity in their sales cycle, or if they are existing power users. Like they already know what they're doing and what they want. But if you're just like, hey, I'm starting up, I've got to get a revenue engine going, I'm not really sure what I want, you want HubSpot. That's the answer.
Well, that's good to know. We actually use HubSpot ourselves and are a certified integrator ourselves. And we really like it too, because it gives us access to almost all the data that you would need to have for integrations with other tools. And it can do a lot of things. It can be very expensive for a startup company. You know, in terms of software, a lot of people don't expect that they're going to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars for software, but if used correctly, it's worth every penny, it seems like.
For sure. And it's the cheap one. Like, it pales in comparison to the costs of Salesforce. Like, I think that the license per license, it's not that much cheaper. But the costs of getting Salesforce going and the cost of maintaining it, right, because it's such a big, like, kind of heavy and honestly difficult to navigate tool, like, those costs just stack up and stack up and stack up. There are lighter versions of all of these things that I'm like, if a company's using it, I'm probably not really that useful to them. So I never have conversations about these things. Like, I know some people like Pipedrive, or there's a few other ones. But like, the CRM is going to be one of the biggest non-headcount, probably the biggest non-headcount cost in your go-to-market, with the possible exception if you're including paid advertising or advertising budgets in that, then sometimes those will be bigger, but the CRM can be a lot.
Well, that's actually a good segue for my next question, because one of the major things about building an operation around generating revenue is generating leads. And that's really the biggest part of the world I come from, is marketing and advertising. And so what is, in a perfect world, because you hear people looking for like a sales and marketing director or vice president or something like that. My feeling is that those two roles are actually very different, because there's a kind of a conflict there. What are you seeing, and like, what is the ideal way that those two functions work together or communicate?
So I think that the fundamental piece of this is it's got to go back to the customer journey, right? So you've got to be able to envision what it is that your customer does, from not knowing you all the way through buying something. And I think that there can't be a lot of overlap in terms of what the functions do. Like, the rules of engagement and the specifics around the handoff need to be so well defined in order for that to work really well. I think the other area where they get into trouble, not just in the funnel and the handoff and the rules of engagement, are around attribution. And so when you're running, say, an outbound sales function alongside a marketing function, and you're incentivizing your marketing folks by, a marketing qualified lead, which you define as, a set of criteria and coming through a marketing channel, and then you are compensating, say, a top of funnel BDR business development function on a sales qualified lead, which might have a similar set of criteria but comes from a different place. And then the customer picks up the phone, but also then goes and clicks on an ad. Like, the attribution, like, who do you attribute that to? And there's companies making billions of dollars off of multi-touch attribution, and consultants making a killing off of just telling you that, like, both people deserve credit in some way. But if that stuff's not set up and well understood, right, then it becomes just this, like, terrible political place that all kind of manifests itself in a CRM. So the definitions and the lines need to be drawn early.
Well, you actually mentioned a couple of things there. You talked about the customer journey. It seems like early in the definition of what it is, I mean, even your advertising campaigns, or how you're going to deal with onboarding a qualified lead or sell to that lead, it seems to me like that's a time when you'd actually want to have people from both camps in the room together talking about what that journey looks like.
Yeah, for sure. You have to, because it's a non-linear journey. Like, not every customer makes a decision in the same way. There are phases that they probably go through in their mind as they are assessing whether or not that you are a company they're going to engage with, or you are a product that they will realistically buy. But you need to be ready for the idea that somebody takes 2 tries or more to be convinced, or that somebody who clicks on an ad isn't going to act unless they are called on the phone. and that can't make your company fall apart, like from a political standpoint. And I will tell you, it can. I'm in enough rooms with enough executives who are arguing over attribution and credit, and not actually working together to make the company get better. And you want to prevent that. I mean, there's some argument to be made that you want to reveal that, because those are probably not the people you want leading the functions, if they are able to come apart over like the politics of attribution. However, it's friction, and it's very, very common, and it's very difficult.
It seems like the more expensive the item, or the more the longer you plan on having the type of thing that you're selling, especially when you're talking about like B2B SaaS, the multi attribution, it seems like it should just be understood that it is something that is going to happen, and we need to have, I mean, you don't have to have a perfect insight to it, but you have to understand, it seems fundamentally, that all of those points, whether it's calling somebody on the phone, calling them back, sending emails, seeing advertising, or seeing certain ads and a certain frequency, all those things work together to bring that person through the funnel to get them to the point where they're ready to actually take action. It seems like that's fundamental, that's going to happen. So it seems like your point of being where you got people fighting over attribution, that doesn't seem very productive to me.
No, it doesn't. And I think that this is where a good RevOps person comes in and solves a lot of this. And I actually just posted about this today, but I talk about this often. I think that a really good RevOps person is first and foremost an excellent stakeholder manager. And the technical elements of like a RevOps person, while they are important and necessary, pale in comparison to your ability to manage people and their expectations. And so a good RevOps person should come in and clarify these things for people and give them very clear decisions that they need to make and come to together. Because if you don't, you think about it like, let's have some empathy for, say, these bad actors in sales and marketing who are always trying to steal attribution or take credit. They don't necessarily understand these things, and they don't necessarily understand how these tools are designed. So someone goes in, if you don't have any RevOps, and just sets it so that the last channel they come through gets 100% of the attribution. That's a perfectly normal decision to make, because you haven't seen this problem yet, or you haven't thought it through, or you haven't worked with it before. And if you're a CEO or a COO or CFO or somebody answering to them, and you don't understand these funnels super well, and you just go ahead and rip off a report that says, okay, I want to know what percentage of my deals are coming from outbound and then from inbound, and you get those numbers and you give them to the CEO, and it's like 80% outbound and 20% inbound, but you've only pulled it off of the last touch for attribution, there's going to be a fight. And that's not an accurate number to give. So
right.
RevOps people should be able to come in and understand this, clarify this for everybody, and put a system in place to actually make sure that people like really truly understand what's going on. And this is just one example of dozens or hundreds, or maybe even an infinite amount of things that a RevOps person needs to come in, sit in between people, and solve.
Yeah, it seems like the higher up you get, and the more just feral that the groups can be, especially when you start talking about like a sales group. You know, there's a special type of person that's a very effective salesperson. The person's got to have a lot of, they kind of need to not have fear. They need to have short-term memory. They need to have the confidence to make that next call and to contact that next person. And it's not easy to find these people. Just like you mentioned, like your RevOps person needs to have the ability to show leadership in that moment, where you might have warring factions within an organization trying to fight over the pie, so to speak, and who should get credit. What are the other components that you're looking for in a revenue operation? So like even down to what are the types of things that you're looking for in a sales team, I would imagine?
Yeah, I think that it really depends on the product and the customer. And so I'm seeing in this day and age, there's a lot of trouble that people are having with outbound, for example. Say 3, 4 through 10 years ago, the primary channel for any sort of sales actually was cold email. And right up through now, that has always been like the number one motion of an outbound sales function. That is not working as well anymore. It's not impossible, but it's not working as well anymore. And the reason why is you have AI tools that are good and that are easy to use, making it possible and simple to send an order of magnitude more emails with the same level of personalization that you used to. So now all of a sudden, anyone who's a potential buyer has their inbox totally cluttered with outbound email. Yet this has been the MO of most sales functions for a decade. And so a lot of leaders and a lot of individual contributors are having trouble with this problem where they go like, what do we do now? Well, the answer might be something else, and it might be just to do it better. And so when I'm like, to bring it back to your question, what am I looking for in, say, an outbound sales function? I think it's that they have the appropriate motions in place for the type of customer and the type of product they have. And this is a super common problem. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine is the CRO of a company called Owner. Owner helps ma and pa restaurants. I should say mom and pop, that's the right term. It helps those types of restaurants. They are killing it. Like their revenue is growing multiples year over year. Their costs are not growing nearly at the rate the revenue is. It's just getting better. You go on LinkedIn, check out Kyle Norton, some of the things he says, you'll see. They are cold calling, right? Cold calling is so controversial now because some people just think it's dead. Some people are kind of in between on it. Some sales leaders are just so pro, it's just cold calling. It's just pick up the phone. That's what you do. Well, no, that's not just what you do. But if you're calling restaurant owners in their 50s and 60s, yes, that will work, right? They've been doing business on the phone for ages. If you are selling to 22-year-old Y Combinator founders that live in the Bay Area and that dropped out of Stanford, I don't know if you guys are listening, Kevin and Victor, but I've worked for these two guys before. Don't call them. Like they do not use the phone. They've never talked on the phone, maybe to their parents, but they're not picking up your call. And I use those two polls as a way of saying that, like, if you like, the RevOps person can help you, but this is primarily the sales leader's responsibility. What is my customer going to listen to? What are they going to open, or what are they going to read? Where are they going to be? And in what conversation can I insert myself and be helpful so that they engage with us as a business? That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it seems like you really do have to know your customer. And, you know, you talked about working with a couple of people from Y Combinator. What is it that, I mean, obviously your organization is almost 2 years old now. What happened with you where you decided now's the time for me to do my own thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, I spent the first 7 or so years of my career in sales and tech, and then I spent the next 7 or 8 in kind of operationally focused roles. So my last 2 roles, I led all finance and operations for a super early stage company like neobank in the Bay Area called Slash. When I joined them, the founders were both 20 years old, not just young guys. I mean, they were actually 20 years old. And the role before that, I was the VP of business operations at Clearco, which is a big e-commerce funding company based here in Canada. And I joined them when it was like just a few million in revenue, 20, 30 people, but like kind of going upward, and left when we had a $2.5 billion valuation and 600 people like globally. So I bring up Clearco because that company, I was just talking to the CEO the other day, Andrew D'Souza, and he said, I think that there's 50 founders now that came out of that company. Like something got built into our DNA there. We were helping founders. Like it was mostly D2C e-commerce companies that were using Clearco. And it really got into our DNA because we all went out and started companies. So when I left Slash, which was my last full-time role, like I had my second daughter coming. I had spent the last year and a half working for a couple of young guys who were just like, and those guys would go. And I needed, like, my personal circumstances were such that, like, I'm always going to be working hard, and I always have, but I need flexibility and I need to be in charge of my own time. So I decided, like, hell or high water, I am starting my own business. That is what I'm going to do. Now, was it this business? No, I actually tried toying around with a tech concept, like a consumer travel app. It did not go well. I started showing it to, like, kind of friends and family network of people, and basically the feedback I got was, okay, like, maybe this is something, but why? Like, why you? Why would we give you money to build this business? Well, you should do RevOps. Like, that's what you're known for.
Like,
that's
literally is the thing you've been doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that there was some part of me that was, like, a little burnt out and tired at the time. And so I was thinking, okay, well, like, what does it look like to get a RevOps company? So I just started calling some friends and, like, exploring the concept, and a contract fell on my lap. Like, it was somebody who I'd worked with at Clearco, who was leading growth at a great company called LTSE, or Long-Term Stock Exchange. You might know that their CEO, Eric Ries, wrote The Lean Startup. And so it was just, there's a contract. Okay, so I'm going to try this RevOps consulting contract. And I did, and I liked it. And then I was just off to the races. I thought, okay, let's build off of this. And then a year and a half later, I've got a handful of people working for me. I've got a roster of people who've worked for me in the past who kind of come in as specialists on different projects, who I hope one day to bring in full time when I have enough of a foundation built. I've got 20 customers, like over $1 million in revenue. Like, it's exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. There's a book that I really enjoy called The E-Myth, and it talks about when you're looking for flexibility, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have the ability to do it. And so they're like, wow, it's like, I'd like to have control over my schedule and everything. And so they start the business thinking they're going to, like, have all this flexibility, but then once they get into it, they're not working 40 hours, they're working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours. How's that going for you?
It's the same. Like, honestly, I don't know what happened to me over the last 15 years. I think I used to be filled with joy and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed or whatever, but now, like, my hobby is work. Like, I like working. I fill my day with it. When there are spaces, I fill it with work. But, like, I'm really excited about this challenge, and in the past with some other roles, I've been really excited about those challenges. So there was no illusions to me that I was going to work less. What I needed was, like, my wife is very ambitious, and she's doing her own thing, and our children are going to demand things like this week and last when they were sick. And I just had to work from home some days, and I had to cancel meetings some days, and I had to fill in with my work at night, and I had to, like, be in the playroom and do work from my phone. Like, that sort of flexibility is important, because if somebody who's in charge of my livelihood is telling me, no, I need you in this meeting right now, like, that's a really hard thing to have to,
that's a big deal.
Deal with. And I don't want to deal with that right now.
The fact that you have that flexibility now is fantastic. And that is one of the benefits of being an entrepreneur, is you're the ultimate decision maker. You can choose to rearrange or reschedule that meeting. Obviously, you're talking about building your business. We can circle back to RevOps a little bit. You're talking about building your own RevOps consultancy. You started off with relationships. How much of your business now is being driven by the same strategies that you share with your clients?
A lot, and there are even new ones that I'm developing that I am now sharing with my clients. For example, I have become highly active on LinkedIn, which was not something I ever did before. I tinkered with it between 6 and 12 months ago, and then 6 months ago I committed to it, and I post basically every day unless something happens. And when you start doing that, you're like, okay, so I put something out there, it gets impressions, and then it gets engagements, and then people reach out and DM, and conversations start. And that's a funnel, right? And that funnel I had never captured before. I had never been at a company where I'd implemented anything sophisticated around LinkedIn. At Clearco, there was a big LinkedIn strategy, but by that time we had a growth guy who was handling it all. And I still don't know if it was like actually making it to the CRM. And so now all of a sudden I'm building these new systems for myself to manage all of these conversations and all of this engagement. And then now I'm implementing it with one of my clients. Like it's just new to me. And so it's really important. And in terms of like CRM, like hygiene and reporting, like I'm a sick man, but if I'm stressed or if I'm bored, there's nothing I like more than going into my CRM and pruning it. Like I don't know why. It's just like it's a mindless organization. Like let's make sure all of my contacts are tagged and have the right company names associated with them. Let's make sure that every deal and company and contact is tied together, right? Let's revisit all of the amounts of all of these deals and make sure they're right. Let's cut another report based on some like kind of questions I've been asking myself, whether or not I can actually answer them. So yeah, that's part of it too.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but when you're good at something, it's fun. You know, it's a lot of fun when you're good at it, and it's a lot of fun to get even better at it.
Yeah, no one's gonna make fun of a professional basketball player for saying, "Hey, sometimes I just like to go out at night and shoot threes." Like, yeah, okay, that tracks, right? Like, can't I sometimes stay in at night and clean contacts? Come on.
Exactly. Just leave your shoes by the front door, please, when you come visit.
Yeah, exactly.
But hey, so I think if we get back to some of the challenges that you deal with as a RevOps expert, it's rare that you get to start working with somebody and help develop those systems from scratch, in my opinion. I would think that, you know, there are startups out there where you can get in early enough and people know about you, and because it seems like a lot of businesses get going, and then what ends up happening is they have like, if they're really good at this, they've got clean data and it makes it easier for them to get to the next thing. But if they don't have that clean data, you're coming into a situation where you've got to clean up a mess and then turn it into new processes and new habits that are going to be able to be productive for them.
Yeah. So I have 20-ish clients right now. I don't remember the exact number. Okay. Of those 20 clients, I have one that was started from scratch, and I built their whole system right from the ground up. They had just come out of like a Google accelerator, and they are my favorite client, and I love that job. I love what I did with it. I love being there. I love those people. The second client I want to mention has a terrifically well-built sales force. The head of that company is like an aerospace engineer by trade, but it's an M&A firm. And he has lots of ideas about how Salesforce should be done. And he is an extremely, extremely disciplined and demanding man. And his Salesforce is great. And so they don't need me to come in and clean up. What we actually do for them is build interesting things from scratch. Like, for example, it's an M&A firm, so they have companies that they basically match buyers with like business owners who might want to sell their company, and they wanted to leverage AI to make matches in their database between like potential buyers and potential sellers that would be good matches, and then reach out to them and see if they're interested. And that involved working with a developer who built an external tool and pushing things from their CRM out and matching them and pushing them back in and then surfacing them for the users. I love doing that too. Now, then there's the other 18. And it is like, it's because it's a mess. That's why I'm there. I'm there because it's a mess. And it's almost like universally true. And I think the big reason why people's RevOps are a mess is it's sort of a new concept. Like it's always been there in some way, but like nobody was calling it RevOps, and it wasn't hot, and no one was investing in it until a few years ago. And so what folks ended up doing, I'm looking at you sales leaders, is taking their worst like junior salesperson and saying, but your records are always clean, so you're going to be our new Salesforce admin. So you be RevOps now. And these people, usually who end up making really good RevOps people later, don't know what they're doing and configure a system that is not configured properly, and companies start accelerating and hitting growth, and the system is nowhere ready to keep up with it. And all of a sudden, you start hiring people and layering them on top of a system that's not designed to scale, and you have a mess. And I go in and clean up those messes.
New systems on top of the broken system to fix the original system, but it's hard to unravel the original system. So it's like this technical debt. I saw an example of what you're describing. I think, well, what I'm describing at least. I was working with a group, and we were doing an audit to see what kind of AI automation that they might be able to take advantage of when this new generative AI technology was coming out a year and a half ago. And we're working with them, and as we were going through their CRM, we noticed that every new lead actually was a contact, and that contact had a status of like whether or not they were sold. And they didn't separate the deal or the opportunity from the contact itself. And so they had no way of knowing really if somebody was like a repeat customer. Because they were locking it to like the customer. But they were very successful. Like they grew to like tens and tens of millions of dollars of revenue distributing and manufacturing equipment. And I remember like going through all of their departments because this was part of like our engagement. And I was like, that one configuration problem that you have going all the way back over here has made it to where you're not even going to be able to use any of the plugins for the CRM that they're using because the plugins are looking to talk to like the deal table or the opportunity table. They're not talking to the contact table.
Yep.
And so it's like, that one configuration issue, which might have been serviceable at like $500,000 worth of revenue, now they're almost 100 times bigger than that, and they're probably spending $2 million a year in people and extra processes and whatnot, just compensating for that one problem.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, exactly. So for people who don't understand this, this reminds me, I've got an analogy for you. 4 years ago, I bought a house. While we were shopping for houses, there was one in a great neighborhood that had some problems with it. And when we went down to the basement, what we saw was that there was like 4 dehumidifiers and some exposed wood. And we asked about it, and they had the report. And basically, it was foundation damage, and what they had to do was spend $2,000 a month keeping it dry. And that's like what happened here. Listen, that's exactly what you're talking about, is that something happened, and now you either have to knock the house over and dig it out again and rebuild it, or you have to spend $2,000 a month on dehumidifiers just so it doesn't blow up or collapse on itself.
Yeah.
And that's my whole world these days.
Yeah. And then that's real. And that's the problem with not getting the right organization or the right structure built early. And then I've met other people, like, for example, today I was meeting with a group and we were talking about what are some basic things you can do to get your data in a place where you can leverage some of these more powerful AI tools. And Copilot has just come out and taught, and basically they've done a revamp. They call it a second wave of Copilot, because the first wave wasn't that impressive and it was hard to use. But what they've done now is they've made it to where as long as your data, like your files, are in SharePoint, it can actually, for your organization, it can actually start to build those vector databases and that body of knowledge about your organization to where Copilot has access to it, where you could do things like ask Copilot questions about like maybe your company manual or something. As long as it's in SharePoint, it can see it, right? And so the reason I bring that up is because there are best practices for a reason. And one of the guys I was talking to in this meeting had actually done this. He had worked with an IT company early on to set up his telephony, to set up his office suite, to set up his email, to where they were using best practices. And he was smart to do it, and I'm sure it wasn't cheap to do it, because the cheap way would have been to not really care and end up with a Google Drive and a Dropbox and or whatever, and it's whatever makes people happy in the organization. But because they did it the right way up front, now this guy is like just rocketing forward. He doesn't have to slow down, where other people are going, oh my gosh, I've got a huge mess.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it. And the mess can get you in lots of ways. Like, I think the mess hurt a lot of companies that sort of had product market fit maybe going into the recession, and then all of a sudden didn't, and then wanted to start leveraging their CRM to make smarter decisions and couldn't. I think it hurts companies that are trying to raise money, and it becomes really apparent that their data doesn't make sense when they start trying to put together a data room and has all kinds of conflicting information in it, and then you raise the eyebrows of the investor. It can get you when you want to exit, or you want to IPO, or you need to be audit ready, and all of a sudden you have to revamp your entire operation set, like, which could be a years-long process in order to have enough governance that you can pass these sorts of procedures or these types of diligence. Like, it will really, really get you if you don't organize these things properly, if you become a successful company.
Well, let's talk about, so you've got, and let's kind of pivot off of that. Let's say you do set your organization and your data structure up correctly. The next step is to get people to use it. So I'm assuming in your line of work, you've seen multiple sales organizations using their CRM to varying levels of completeness. What are some really good best practices that we can learn from you in regard to making sure our sales teams are using CRMs, like if it's set up properly, but actually using them like they're supposed to?
Yeah, so you touch on something that's really, really hard to do, because I can set up a system where I know with 100% confidence that all of the exact right data points will be collected in order for somebody to move through the funnel, and then they won't use it, right? That's the balance you play with, like, governance in a CRM. Because if it, like, you can lock stages. So say, for example, you have an opportunity and it has to go through 7 stages, and in each of these stages you want 1 or 2 new data points to be added in order for you to have the information that you want to analyze your funnel. If you make that too hard to use, people go around it, and making it really hard to use is the easiest way to get the data points to be 100% correct all of the time. So what you need to do is you need to thread the needle between, like, what can I live without, and what do I absolutely need to have, and you need to generate the credibility with your users that, like, they're going to build a system that's focused on me, and that, like, that I'm able to use, and that makes sense to me, and that guides me through the process. And then in order to get to, like, that next level of, like, getting people excited about keeping their CRM clean and their records clean, is when you make their lives easier with the information that is the result of that. This is the big missing piece, I think, for a lot of RevOps, like, kind of mid-level RevOps folks, is that they demand you do things. However, there's no beneficiary of it, right? Governance for governance sake on data is not really, I don't really think it's worthwhile. However, if you show people that, hey, at, like, stage 4, when I make you put in 5 things and it's a little bit annoying, well, here's some information that came from that will allow you to sell better next month. If you do that, then all of a sudden you start generating credibility and buy-in, and then people start wanting to do the things that you tell them to do, and then makes the entire organization better. So I think giving back that information and showing people why it's done the way it is really important, and a bit of a missing piece.
So that kind of leads me to my very last question I had, which is, one of the things I talk with business leaders a lot about is frequency of sales meetings. In your experience, what is the best frequency or the best format for a sales meeting? What does that look like?
Oh, yeah. It's a funny question, because I am sort of anti-meeting to a fault. But the bigger your sales org is, I think the more the more a leader needs to communicate with people to make sure that they're all kind of marching in the same direction. So I think that there's probably a bit of a scale here where, if you're a sales team under 5, I don't think you should have any recurring meetings. You should probably mostly be senior. You should have really good asynchronous communication, and those standards should be like sketched out to some degree. And then as you get bigger and you get more complex and your mandate gets broader, you probably need to start having more consistent meetings. And then I think if I think back to my Clearco days when we had 200 people in North America, like it made sense that there was a weekly meeting that managers had with their team of like 8 to 10. And that there was like bi-weekly meetings that were held by the directors who had 3 or 4 of these pods. And that there were monthly meetings that was the VP of sales addressing the entire sales floor. So I would think about it sort of on that scale, but I don't know if I have a real direct answer to that question.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the coaching opportunity of how to help junior salespeople along with getting better at how to deal with their opportunities, especially when you're talking about bigger deals.
Yeah, for sure. I think, what's like this brings it back to the sort of in-office remote question, which I, broadly speaking, don't have a strong opinion on. I think that companies should be allowed to decide if they're going to have an in-office or a remote culture. And I think people who are looking for jobs can decide if they want to be an in-office or a remote employee. And the employee might miss out on good employers because they don't want to go to the office, and the company might miss out on good employees because they will only accept people who come into the office. However, when you're talking about younger salespeople, like early in their careers, I think there's a lot learned by osmosis. I think there's a lot learned by like energy, that like collective energy of people being in a place. And I think there's a lot learned by just like having leaders within earshot, like in a physical place. And so I'm moving the question sort of away from meetings, but like I think that like sort of connected energy of being together is important for junior salespeople, at least. Now I run a remote organization, but like everyone who works for me has 10 years of experience and it's like highly independent. I don't like, sometimes we benefit from being together, and we'll get together when we recognize that, but I don't need it. But junior sales folks, like I don't know how you get good without being around each other.
You really have to learn from and have a mentor, I would say. Yeah. Because I mean, you run into tons of adversity in the sales department.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, that's how I started my career, like picking up the phone, cold calling, getting nasty emails back from people because like clumsy cold emailing. But, you get around really good people and you just sort of pick things up and you figure out where you fit. And honestly, like I made a mid-career pivot away from sales because like I was a director of sales at a certain point, and I had the decision, like, should I pursue this path further and try and go and become a VP of sales, or should I do something else? And honestly, it was something else. Like I didn't even know it was this, to be honest with you. I just didn't want to do like sales leadership because personality-wise, I think I'm a little too thin-skinned for the amount of rejection like over a 30-year career. So I didn't want to do it. But people need to learn that. And I like being rejected alone at home. Like that's hard. Like it's nice when you have people around you who are like, hey, come on, like screw that guy. Like
that's another vote for not working remotely. Like just go to an office so you can be rejected there. So when you're at home, you're not rejected. So I haven't heard that one yet, but that's a really good one.
It's funny. I hadn't thought of it until I started picturing it. But yeah, I don't know. It's like junior people need coaching, especially in sales. It's basically like sports. It's like get up, take your shots. Like it's a hard thing to do. Only a certain number of people are going to be successful. I don't know how you do that on your own. I really don't.
All right. So I lied. So this is the final question. So if you go to like HubSpot's website, it seems like everything that they talk about now mentions AI, even though the platform hasn't always been there. And it seems like they're going there. They're not exactly there yet, but everything mentions AI. how do you see AI, this new version of generative AI, where it can do reasoning and it can do composition of things? What's the best use of AI in a sales organization?
Yeah, first of all, I'm not surprised. So last week, I'm not sure when folks are listening, but so middle of September, HubSpot has its inbound conference in Boston, and Salesforce has Dreamforce in San Francisco. They're at the exact same time, which is hilarious because it's very clearly intentional. And all they talked about at either one was AI. What I think is funny about this is that there is so much effort being put into AI on the top of funnel, which is automating outbound email, basically, and trying to add realistic sounding personalization. And I actually think that's the worst application of it. I don't think that AI is good enough at actually sounding like a real person. I think that it's
offensive
obvious
to me personally. I mean, I get an AI email from somebody and I can tell it's AI, and I'm like 100%. Thinking, like, you've lost me from like square one. You just don't even go further. Like I literally had an instance this week where the only reason, this is a cold email I get like 4 times a day, the same theme of an email. And the only reason I responded to it because it looked like it was written by a person.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And which is, I mean, a vote of confidence for like cold emailing can work if you just write it. And this is where it seems like everybody's energy is like, let's go to top of funnel. But what's actually happening is response rates and open rates and all these rates are falling now. And it's because it's not only low quality, but it's polluting people's inboxes and making it harder to see something that is quality. Meanwhile, you have the middle and the bottom of the funnel where you have tools out there like Fluent, for example, which I think is a good tool, that helps you write like listens to your conversations and helps you write business cases. And what Fluent does is it assesses the language and the words that the buyer uses and incorporates that language into building a business case to give back to the client. That is a really great use for AI. And I think things like RFPs are just like repeated but very difficult, arduous, like task doing. Like that is a really great use for AI, but people are not focused on the bottom of the funnel with AI, they're focused on the top. So I think one of my boldest predictions is I think that one of the highest paid person in your sales org in the next 10 years is going to be your BDR. It's going to have to be somebody with credibility, with a personality that can make themselves seen, and it's going to have to be insanely human in order to work. And I think that the account executive's job is going to become a lot easier because it's going to be laced with AI tools that actually work. And then you can probably go a little bit more junior on that role because these things will help you close. So that's how I see it. It's kind of a contrarian point of view, but I really do believe it.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think top of funnel AI is offensive.
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's so bad. But I love the idea of relatability. I mean, our show here is called the Law of Relevancy for a reason. It's all about being relevant. And as long as you're keeping up with things, you're learning, you're listening, you're relevant, which is the reason for the show. Where can people follow your thought leadership, James? Where can people keep up with what you're up to?
Yeah, LinkedIn is where I'm most active. So James McKay is the CEO at Venn. I shouldn't be too hard to find there. If you want to look at my stuff, you can go to my website. Like run a primarily referral-based business. So like my website's a little bit bare bones, but it's venn.studio. But yeah, LinkedIn is where you should find me. Add me, engage with me. I'll respond to you.
All right. Well, thank you, James. And you can find us anywhere where podcasts are found on the Bake More Pie social media, as well as the Law of Relevancy. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.